Hocam canlı yayındayız.
Tamam.
So, hocam, more people are joining in, and
Okay.
I think we can start in 5 minutes.
Okay.
If that's fine for you.
Yeah, that's fine. No problem.
Okay.
Canlı yayın linkimizi paylaştım.
Tamam. Chatbox'ta gördüm. Tamam.
Hocam sizi host yapıyorum ve ben ayrılıyorum. Bilginiz olsun.
Tamamdır.
Kolay gelsin.
Teşekkür ederim. Okay, hello everybody. So for this presentation, I will be talking about Amanda Hoca and our project, Istanbul Provincial Directorate of National Education conducts this Erasmus project, and I will be talking about it very briefly, if you don't mind. Our project name is Just Speak, and it's one of the K Action 1 projects, and there might be new people who doesn't know about it, so I want to talk about it. It started in Küçükçekmece and Büyükçekmece district, and now it is accepted within the Erasmus. and these are our logos. You can follow us on Instagram as well. And there are 39 districts in Istanbul, and we have been applying this project in 22 districts. And our main target, main groups are secondary schools and high schools in this project. And every month, students are producing speech and video themselves, and they join a competition. They learn about the results, and they get some presents. And also they have people know them because their videos are broadcasted on YouTube and Instagram. So these are the topics from the previous months. And this month in March, we are still accepting applications, and we can talk about it. This is for Istanbul State Schools as well. And these are the 5th grade, 6th grade, and 7th grade champions from various schools in December and January, February. And we had meetings with people from Samantha Johnson from TRT before with our champion students. And we have online trainings with the help of Maltepe University before, when the online teaching has started. And these are some shots from these continuing professional development events. And also we had 2 sessions with Professor Dr. Cem Balçıkanlı. He is from Gazi University. And Amanda Hoca also has some relations with Gazi University. She has her MA and PhD there. Okay, these are some photos. And we have in our directorate building in our library, we had some face-to-face events, but they stopped, unfortunately. And this is all about the project. So our students, if they become champions, they will have chance to travel abroad at the end of the project. And so they are very excited to join this project. And it is called Believe in Yourself, Just Speak. This is the project is about. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Amanda Hoca. She's a very well-known name, but I will tell you about her briefly. She's a full professor at Uludağ University. She has been in ELT for 30 years. She has taught students from preschool to postgraduate in UK, Taiwan, and Turkey. And her research interests are reflective practice, foreign language teacher education, and classroom interaction. And she trained teachers before in Bolu İzzet Baysal University. Now she's teaching and she's the head of department at Uludağ University. And from my perspective, she's the best thesis advisor in the world. Because she was my thesis advisor before. Okay, let me stop sharing, Hocam.
Okay.
And now the stage is all yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Ferhat, for that wonderful introduction. I hope I live up to that introduction today. Okay, I must say it was a great pleasure to work with Ferhat on his thesis. Okay, he did a very good job. Now then, let me see. Let me start off with what we're going to talk about today. I think everybody here must be middle school teachers, isn't it? Grades 5, 6, 7, and 8, and high school as well.
Yeah, mainly. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Right. Well, here we go then. What I'm going to focus on today is teenagers, particularly, you know, in middle school, when grade 5 is kind of like a continuation, a little bit of primary school, and they're still all excited about learning English, and they have fun doing playing your games and everything. And then suddenly by 6th grade and 7th grade, something happens and those little kids are not the same anymore. And you think, where have they gone? Who's in their place now? So what I want to focus on today is teenagers as English language learners. There are a lot of challenges to teaching teenagers because of their developmental characteristics. You know better than I do. But as always, with every challenge, there is an opportunity. And that's what teaching is really, isn't it? It's finding something that is maybe a little bit difficult to do, and then working a way around to be able to do it. Okay, so that's what I want to talk about today. In connection with this, believe in yourself and just speak. Actually, I think a lot of teenagers need to be told that, don't they? As we see at this stage, at primary school, they're all excited and wanting to join in with their hands up and everything. But by the time they get to grades 6, 7, and 8, they're a little bit more shy and they don't feel so confident. So I think my talk today will fit in with that, the overall concept of this project. Okay, so let's have a look at what we're talking about, our overview. First of all, I want to put teenagers in context, and I want to talk very briefly about language learning at different ages. Okay, so from young learners, adolescents, and then adults as well. How do teenagers fit in with that? Then I want to unpack the developmental stages. What is happening in the teenage mind that is causing such a difference in them as, first of all, as human beings, and then as students? What is going on there? And how a little bit all these, what we see as unacceptable behaviour, are actually expected behaviour from teenagers because of their developmental level. So that's, I want to point out that a little bit. And then teaching adolescents, then teaching English to adolescents. So that's basically our overview. It looks, it doesn't look like very much, but as I always say to my students, be very scared of overviews that only have 2 or 3 points, because they're usually very long, 2 or 3 points. Okay, so hopefully it will be enjoyable and informative. So let's start off with young learners first of all. Who are these people we call young learners? And I don't know if you've seen this film here. I've got a few scenes out of the film Inside Out, which is the Disney Pixar film basically about a child's mind developing into a young teenager, wasn't it? And I think they depicted the inside of their minds very beautifully, actually. So here we've got young learners. Everything's a game, isn't it? We've got the little play island here. We've got the family island. We've got the fun island, friends. So their world is very limited. Their immediate world is very limited, and it's all, I don't know, fun and games and, you know, enjoyable. Okay. So obviously for young learners, their intellectual development is in the forefront. Obviously, they're not completely developed intellectually, which is why when you're teaching young learners, you have to teach very concrete concepts, don't you, like colours or animals, and you have to repeat a lot. They learn quickly, but they forget twice as quickly. Okay, so we've got this intellectual development. They're like sponges, they pick everything up, but they could drop everything as well at the same time. So it's kind of an advantage and a disadvantage there. They have a very short attention span, as anybody who has taught primary school will know, or anybody who has children will know that it's every 10 minutes you have to change, oh, let's do this, and oh, let's do that. So they have a very short attention span. So their lessons have to be, you know, very quick-paced, very quickly paced. And also because they're in this world where they are, their brains are open to everything in the world, aren't they? They're learning about the environment that they're in. All their 5 senses are very much in operation. So when we're teaching young learners, it's not a good idea just to rely on visual or audio senses so much. You also have to use this tactile things, kinesthetic, and also maybe smells and taste as well. Okay, because that's how they learn the world, and they can learn English through that way as well. I think that's very important, so I'll put it there twice. Let's skip over that one as well. Affective factors. Now, any of you have taught young children, primary school, well, you know that they have no sense of ego yet. They don't mind joining in fun things. They don't mind wearing silly hats or putting on masks and singing songs together, because that's what they do. That's what children do at that age. And then you can make use of that in your classes as well. So they're affected. They don't have that ego yet. Their ego is developing, but they're not aware of it yet. So that's the sort of activities you can do there. And obviously, because children are not very analytical, or they're not consciously analytical, when we teach language, we teach language as a whole. We don't divide it into grammar or vocabulary or listening, or we present language as a whole thing, like in a story, for example, or a song or a game. Okay, so that's young learners, but obviously they're not my main focus today. They're just a little bit of background for you. Let's skip on to adults now, because until very recently, adolescent psychology was not studied very greatly. It's only within the past 10, 15 years that psychologists have turned to the characteristics of adolescence. Somehow, magically, well, I mean, 100 years ago, people thought that children were just small adults, okay? Then they realized they weren't okay children with Piaget and everything. These people started to research children a bit more. And it's as if that children suddenly one day become an adult. Okay, we know that adults as learners, I don't know if you've taught adults language at all. For one thing, they can handle abstract rules. They can handle the grammar. They want to know what the present perfect tense is and what, you know, they want to know all those formula, okay, because they can handle it and maybe they expect it as well. They can deal with less interesting material. Because you're adults, we just deal with things, don't we? We don't have to think about entertaining adults all the time like we do with young learners. They rely largely on visual and auditory input because of schooling. Schooling narrows us down, actually, in my personal opinion. Schooling tends to focus on visual and auditory input only, and less so on the other senses. They also have an established self-esteem as well by adulthood. They know who they are. Their characters have pretty much settled down. So they go back to that being able to have fun in the classroom, maybe. Because they say, you know, I know who I am. This is not a threat to who I am anymore with most adults. And they can handle language out of context. So where we had whole language with children, we must have language in context. We can't separate it. With adults, you can take language out of its immediate context for some analysis work. Okay, that's possible with them. And they have a certain amount of maturity to make their own decisions as well. You can ask adult learners, what do you need to learn? Because they will have a good idea. I need English to do this. Okay, children don't. What would you like to do? I want to go home. Yeah, no, you can't go home. It's not an option. Okay, so these are adults. Now we know that children don't suddenly become adults. We have this in-between stage, which is sometimes can be a teacher's nightmare. It could be a parent's nightmare, isn't it? It's this teenagers, where suddenly there is an explosion of emotions and behavior, isn't there? They have this, where it used to be fun, joy, everybody, you know, little kids enjoying themselves, suddenly we get these other emotions coming in. Disgust, I hate that. Anger, what? Okay, you can't believe that, I don't believe that, you mustn't. And then fear, maybe, oh no, exams, oh no. And then sadness as well. Okay, so we have, with teenagers, we have this explosion and we have these emotions sometimes all at once, sometimes in order, but something's happening here, and it's not a smooth transition from children to adulthood, childhood to adulthood. So I want to unpack adolescence a little bit at the risk of ending up under all the boxes as we find out what is going on in adolescence that explains their behavior, and how can we be aware of these as teachers and take those into consideration in teaching language. So let's have a look first of all. We're going to look at their cognitive development, their emotional development, and their social development as well. So those three main areas where we have some kind of influence with students. Obviously, behavioural development as well. The behavioural development is a result of those first three, actually. Why teenagers behave as they do is because of these three stages of development. Okay, so let's have a look then. Physical development, obviously physical development is very important, but there's not much we can do about that as teachers, as language teachers. That sort of happens anyway, okay? So yeah, here we go. Here's a teenager. Here's your typical teenager. This is Kevin. Okay, and obviously Kevin is not a real teacher, a real teenager. Kevin is a character this is a British character comedian, Harry Enfield. And one of his characters is Kevin the teenager. And we can see here, okay, this typical teenager. For one thing, we can see the look on the face, the blank look on the face. What's going on? This is boring. I hate you. I hate everything. It's not fair. We've got the hair. Okay, little kids' hair, when you cut them, they're all sort of, they behave themselves, and suddenly they let them grow, and there's all this their long hair all over the place. They've got their baseball cap back to front in a sign of rebellion. His baggy, oversized t-shirt, the body language, all the posters on the wall as well, isn't he? He's our typical teenager. Okay, and this is all because of these development in these areas, basically. Okay, so we're going to look now. I hope this video you'll be able to see this. This is Kevin's 13th birthday. Now, this is a very short sketch from a BBC comedy show. And this is Kevin at midnight on his 13th birthday. So as you watch this video, I want you to keep in mind cognitive development, affective development, and social development. What evidence can you see of those changes in this video? Okay, so here we go. Şimdi. Acaba mikrofon kapatmam gerekecek mi burada? Yok herhalde, neyse. Let me play it then, here we go.
sad. I want a bloody high five. Right, that's it, off to bed. I'm not going to bed. I'm going out.
Oh, don't be stupid, Kevin. You can't go out now.
Why not? Because it's 12 o'clock. It's way past your bedtime. It's pouring with rain outside. It's dangerous for a child on his own. You've got nowhere to go, and you've got school tomorrow. That is so unfair. I hate you. All right then. I will go to bed, okay? Happy.
Good night, Kevin.
Don't bloody shout at me! Don't worry, darling. It's only a phase. It only lasts for 4 or 5 years.
Okay. So as you can see there, obviously this is an it's a comedy, it's exaggerated, and it's exaggerated. The reason why it is funny, a comedy, is because it's exaggerating things that we can recognize there from adolescence, isn't it? So if we think about his cognitive development there, first of all, we saw his physical development, didn't we? We saw the change from the happy, bouncy child with the cute curly hair into this sort of like, oh, teenager with the long hair and this sort of angry looking. So we can see the cognitive development as well. He was he wanted a Super Mario cards, okay, but Game Boy, whatever. But now he's a teenager, he thinks that's sad, he wants a hi-fi. So obviously the rejection of childish things there. We saw his affective development from being a bouncy, happy child into a really angry teenager. We also saw his social development as well. He wants to go out. He doesn't care it's 12 o'clock at night. He's rebelling against his parents. He's rebelling against authority. Okay, so I think that is kind of recognizable, I think, in a way for us. And as Kevin's father said, you know, don't worry, it's only a phase. Okay, it takes 4 or 5 years, which can be a long time, which basically takes the kid up to the end of school, really, doesn't it? So as teachers, from middle school up to high school, we have a real serious job helping these teenage students to get through the difficult parts of life, as well as just teaching English. So we can say then, even though it doesn't seem acceptable for us, I mean, to shout at your parents, to shout and scream at your parents is not acceptable behavior. However, a lot of these things are normal, okay? It's normal for teenagers to, for example, argue for the sake of arguing. So teachers at high school will recognize this. The students who try and pick an argument with you, try and say, you know, to be contrary, basically, okay? But what we have to do as teachers is not to lose our temper. It may be very difficult. Just realize that teenagers just argue just because they can, okay? Their cognitive development is at the stage where they can see opposite sides of things, okay? They also jump to conclusions. Everybody hates me, okay? That teacher is out to get me. They may all hoja bana taktı. Okay, this is actually not, the hoja has got more things in their life to deal with than, you know, being obsessed over a student or anything. They are extremely self-centered. The whole world turns around them. Again, they can lack empathy to a certain degree of their friends, of their teachers, of their parents. They will always find faults with adults. Okay, it's because of you. You did that. The teacher did this, or my parents did this. They're always going to find fault with us. And they can be overly dramatic, as we saw there with Kevin. Okay, now we saw that with Kevin. This is from a scientific text about adolescence. Okay, it's not just me making it up from what we saw of Kevin there. This is actually scientifically put forward. So let's have a look then. At each of these stages of development, what are teenagers being able to do, and how can we take up the advantage of that when we're teaching teenagers? Okay, so in terms of their cognitive development, then they're obviously they're not children anymore. They're not completely adults, but for teaching, they have their point of development here is a great advantage for us. For one thing, they can think about cause and effect. They can start to think about the results of their actions. You know, if I do this, then this will happen, or this happened because something else happened. Okay, they can see that relationship, and obviously children can't always see that, or they can see it on a very concrete level. Okay, if I touch the hot stove, my finger will burn. That's very concrete, but with teenagers, they can start to think more. And connected with this is this hypothetical thinking. Okay, if I work hard, then I will be able to do this. And can you see how now hypothetical thinking, what does that come with in English or in any language? If, isn't it? If I do this, this will happen. If I did this, this could have happened. Isn't it? So we can see we're beginning, in terms of language teaching, we're beginning to start to use more complicated language chunks. Okay, I don't want to say grammar because that leads us down a different path. These are chunks here that we can, as they're beginning to think about the future and what will happen, we can give them the English to do that with. Okay, so that's a huge advantage for us as teachers. It's also at this age where they begin to play with symbols and metaphors. They start to play with language. Now, I'm sure all our middle school teachers here and all those who have children who are at middle school will recognize this. How do you say in Turkish, soğuk espriler, isn't it? It begins in 6th grade. Okay, and this is a universal thing. Turkish kids do it, British kids do it, Russian, Chinese, everybody, all kids at this age, it's like something has been switched on, and they all start making these, start playing with language, because this is how they start to think about language. Children don't really think about language in this way. They start to think about how words are related to each other, how words may sound similar. So what you see here, if I can, oh no, okay, I've got, okay, well, I was going to show you something here, but the link has been broken. But if you see on the internet now, we have a lot of social media memes, for example. I mean, the teenagers these days, the Generation Z teenagers are all the meme generation, aren't they? And memes are basically playing with symbols and metaphors, actually, in terms of language and images as well. And that's really useful for us, because that's something we can bring into our language classrooms for them to do this in English. They can also think about the future. They can start goal setting. They start to think about what they're good at, what they enjoy doing, and what they could do in the future. Okay, this maybe tends to be a little bit more around high school level. Okay, they're still not so maybe sure in middle school, but that's again, so goal setting, you can see then that with students, we can talk with adolescent students, we can start talking about the future. I want to do this, I will do this, I'm going to do this. Setting intentions, making plans. Again, this is not what you can do with younger children. Younger children has to be here and now, this happened, okay? And because of this cognitive development as well, teenagers start to look inside more, they start to introspect more. And this can be quite a problem, actually, because they can become lost in themselves. Their inner world is very, very deep, and it goes into very far places. But again, they start thinking about, who am I? What kind of person am I? How do I feel about this? So that, again, is a very important aspect of cognitive development that we as language teachers can bring into our classroom. Introspection in terms of maybe writing journals or keeping a blog, that kind of thing. Okay, so we can see here all of these stages have, they give us a certain amount of difficulty, Okay, but they also present us with an opportunity as well. Along with cognitive development is cognitive competence. So this is basically their intellectual development. We can see here they start to reason. Okay, they start to reason. Now the thing is, it doesn't happen overnight. Adolescents don't suddenly start reasoning like a mature philosopher or anything. If you notice in the video, he said, oh no, he's lost his power of rational thought. Actually, he never had a power of rational thought. He's developing the power of rational thought. Teenagers will say some incredibly illogical things. They will say things that are just too linear logic. And you know, as a mature individual, that's not possible, that's not logical at all. But that actually is a sign that they are developing, they're developing hypotheses and testing them. Okay, that's a sign that they are actually developing their powers of reasoning. It doesn't mean that they don't have them, it means that they are developing them now. I think we need to look at it in that light when we look at teenagers and their illogical conclusions. They start problem solving. They're able to think abstractly. Okay, they're able to reflect on things. Remember, introspection. So that's the reflective skills that they have to reflect on what they did, why they did it, the effects of their actions on others, and they can reflect on do that and maybe change them if necessary. Okay, and they can plan for the future. So these are all skills, again, connected with cognitive development that we can take advantage of in the classroom with our materials and our activities. Okay, so we can start to see the activities we're doing here are very, very different from young learners. Okay, and what it is, this is because the brain is so plastic at the moment. I don't know if you saw the film Inside Out, but what happens is that the child's brain is that the islands collapse, don't they? And you think, oh my goodness, this is awful. But as the islands collapse, but in their place, new islands come up, don't they? Okay, new, more appropriate islands start appearing. Okay, and these all these cognitive skills play an important part in there. Connected with cognitive development is the idea of moral development as well. Because teenagers can think about the effects of their actions, and because they can look inside and introspect, their idea of moral development is also happening here. They have an idea of ethical behavior. What is ethical to do? What is good? What is bad? What is right? What is wrong? And they start to think about it now. Children, obviously we start values education right from childhood, from family even. But with young children, it tends to be, look, we do that. It's on a very behavioral sort of level. With teenagers, we can start to think about it. They can start questioning, why is this wrong? Okay, so moral reasoning, pro-social behavior, discussion of ethical issues. All these are excellent backgrounds for activities to do with teenagers, with speaking activities. Okay, and also as teachers, we have to be a model as an adult here, as a fully developed adult, the teacher. We have to be a model of ethical behavior. Okay, we have to, when we're in the classroom, we have to stick by our word. If we promise something, we have to meet that promise. If we can't meet it, then don't promise it. But you know, we have to do that. It's not enough for us to tell students. We actually have to behave in that way. Okay, so that's cognitive development. For us, one of the things about affective development now, this emotional development, is that students now are beginning to become aware of their own identities. Now, identity development, obviously, it begins in childhood, but when it comes to adolescence, the students can start thinking about who they are. Okay, and it's our job as teachers, of course, it's parents' jobs as well, but as teachers, students spend a lot of time with us, and as English language teachers also, because we're dealing, language is a means of communication. It's a window to the outside world. It's a window to a lot of different learning from different backgrounds. We have a very important job here to help students develop a realistic identity, because I mean, you know, if you teach teenagers that at this stage they can be very unrealistic. They can either be like, well, I'm really terrible, or, you know, this sort of like self-depreciating teenager, or it can be just over, well, I'm fantastic, I can do everything, there's nothing, you know, me, that kind of thing. But as teachers, we need to, again, help them to develop a kind of balanced identity here. Their identity needs to be coherent as well. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to be coherent at the beginning. It means we have to help them to become coherent. What does this mean? Your identity is like, you shouldn't be, you know, try to be, how you say in Turkish, tutarlı. You know, one day you behave like this, the next day you behave like that. Okay, it's okay for teenagers, but as you become an adult, your behavior does need to be coherent. How do you relate to other people? And how do you manage your emotions as well? Because we've got an emotional explosion. Students will need to learn how to manage those emotions, okay, just as we adults do as well, don't we? Okay, so we have an important job, I think, as teachers here. Social development, obviously, as I think we saw very clearly in that video, childhood is a time when they are very close to their family and their family will shape them. However, at adolescence, they start to become, how can I say, be less dependent on family and more dependent on significant others in their environment, such as their friends, for example, very, very influenced by their friends, by the school, the teachers at school, and by the community in general. And I think what has been very difficult for teenagers this past year is that just at this time that they should be spending more time with their peers at school, with their teachers, they've been kind of forced to stay at home with their family. So if we think in grades 7, 8, and 9, that age group where they're starting to form friend groups, suddenly they've been not able to do that. Okay, that need has not been fulfilled in a great way. So I think we've got to be very careful with our teenage students at the moment. You know, they've been stuck at home with mum and dad who don't understand them and they hate them and whatever. Okay, hopefully with things opening up a little bit, that will be sorted out. Okay, then behavioural development. This comes with all the other areas. Why are teenagers so, how do we say, reckless? Isn't it? Teenagers, which is like, oh my goodness, they're so reckless. They're just not careful. And this is because they have to be like that, basically, because at this age, exploration is very important. Now, if we think about adolescence in terms of human development, and if you think that human development, our environment has developed a lot quicker than we have as humans. Technology, everything around us has developed so quickly, but actually still as human beings, our development is still belongs to about 10,000 years ago. So at the adolescent stage then, it's actually the stage where humans went out to discover their environment, to go out, to find maybe new plants or to find a new area to live or to go out and hunt something. But now we don't have to hunt anymore because there's a supermarket down the road. We don't, everything is there with us, but that need for exploration is still there in the teenage mind. Okay, they're programmed to go and explore. They're programmed to experiment, and they're programmed also to risk take as well. If none of our ancestors took any risks, we would probably still be in a small place in Africa or wherever humans came from at the first time, isn't it? Okay, because humans started to take risks, then the species spread all over the planet. Now, the trouble is that teenagers are still programmed to do that, but their environment is in a way much more dangerous than it used to be. We're not experimenting with mushrooms that we found or berries that we found in the woods. They're unfortunately experimenting with illegal substances, for example. Okay, so again, as teachers, that part we've got to be very, very careful with. Okay, you know, things that are unacceptable socially, they will be experimenting with them. And rather than, I think, punishing them, I think we have to understand why they're doing that and then help them to not do it if possible. Okay, so those are the kind of challenges. What opportunities do they give us then? So for one thing, I think when we think about teenagers, actually they're a huge, this group presents an amazing range of possibilities. With young learners, yes, they're fun, they do everything together, they will sing your song, they will listen to your story, they will repeat your story, they will do all those hands-on activities. Yes, it's fun, but because of their intellectual development, it's still quite limited, isn't it? Okay, but when you get to teenage things, then there's a whole wide range of material and activities that you can use with them. Because of the internet and social media these days, authentic materials are much more available than they ever used to be. So maybe 10, 15 years ago, it was quite difficult to find an authentic material to use in teaching. Okay, you know, 20 years ago, finding an English newspaper, an English language newspaper with an article was kind of really difficult. Okay, but now they're everywhere. Okay, so there's a lot of authentic material available, a lot of current things available as well. You can use a variety of different classroom management techniques now. Students can work on their own. Young learners are not so good at working on their own. They maybe work on their own in a little group, but you know, sitting down and getting something done on their own is quite difficult with young learners. They can work in pairs more readily. They can do group work. You can do that with teenagers as well. Whole class work may not always be as successful as when teaching young learners. Okay, with whole class work, what might happen is one or two of the more dominant I am here teenagers might dominate the class, and the less confident ones might sort of sit at the back and avoid being involved. Okay, so it's a good idea to split them up a little bit. Now, it's also, I think, a good idea to keep in touch with students' needs, because at this stage, because of their identity development and their moral development as well, this is where students start to have a diverse range of interests, don't they? They're experimenting with maybe people who they look up to, who are their role models. Social issues such as the environment or veganism. I've suddenly noticed that a lot of young people these days are interested in veganism. Okay, so where does that come from? Where does that idea come from? Can you choose materials there? Remember, not being judgmental as well, whatever you believe. So there's a whole range of topics that you can use. You can use there for a discussion group or for a reading activity, for possibly a writing activity. This is really, really important as well to keep up with. It's not the same as it was not even 10 years ago. Okay, it's very, very different. We can involve students in decision making to a certain degree, not maybe so much as adults. And no, what would you like to do now? Not that. You can give them an option. Okay, democracy. What is democracy? People are allowed to make choices, but we tell them what they've got to choose. So you can say, okay, today we can do this reading, or if you like, we could do the listening first and then do the writing. Okay, what would you like to do first? But still, you are controlling those decisions in a way, but you can involve them. They can think like, yeah, I want to do this. And I think this is really important with teachers when we're teaching teenagers. Be very, very truthful with them. Students will always know if a teacher is hiding behind something. They will recognize that. And I think students will always appreciate a teacher who is being honest with them. So don't make promises that you won't be able to keep. Okay, so if you finish this activity today, we'll all go to the cinema tomorrow. Yeah, I mean, come on, that's not possible. Okay, if things are not going so well, if somebody's not doing such a good job, then we have to say, well, to be honest, it's not going so well, you need to do this. But whatever you do, I think the best thing to do with young adults is just to be who you are, to be sincere with them, to be truthful with them. And I think they will appreciate that. And I think, again, with teenagers, yes, they are potentially behaviorally very, they are potentially disruptive. Okay, you can potentially have problems with that. So I think the thing is with teenagers is to be proactive rather than reactive. And if you, rather than dealing with problems as they pop up, what happens then is that you're dealing with that problem, and while you're dealing with that problem, another problem pops up over there. So like that game in, what do we call it? That game in fairs that you have, that whack-a-mole. Yani köstebekler çıkıp duruyorsun. Tepesine vururken başka bir tane çıkıyor, isn't it? Okay, the idea is to be proactive. Okay, what do we expect from each other? So again, this is sitting down, making an agreement. Okay, you are adults, you can make your decisions, and I too. What do I expect from you, and what can you expect from me as well? So codes of behavior, I think should also apply to teachers as well, not just to students. Okay, so I agree to grade your homework on time, or I agree to spend 10 minutes at the end of the lesson doing this. Okay, so being proactive, and when somebody is being disruptive, then you say, okay, stop 1 minute, what did we agree on there? Okay, so those are the opportunities. Being careful though, a couple of things that we need to be perhaps careful with. Remember, this is the stage where they are very self-conscious, and it's really got to be very careful about putting easily embarrassed students at the center of attention. I think this with anything, isn't it? With, let me see if I got these in one of my points there. That's it. I think this is the most important one. Not losing your temper if you are challenged by students. Listen and be prepared to take a step back. Now, teenagers can be very trying, and one thing that they do is to push the teacher, to see how far they can push the teacher before they explode, isn't it? This is one of the things that teenage students love to do. You know, what makes my teacher angry? How far do I have to push him or her before he explodes? Okay. So it's really, really difficult at this point to keep your temper, to keep calm, because it's like they are attacking you. I think as teachers, we have to realize that actually that student is not attacking me as a person. They are just trying out their newfound cognitive skills in a way, and they're trying it out on me as a teacher, as a position of authority here. I think what you have to do, if you lose your temper, then that's it, then everything finishes there. If you are angry and you shout, or you seek some kind of retribution, punish the student, then I think you have lost it as a teacher there in their eyes. Okay, so if a student keeps pushing you, just say, okay, just listen to them. Let's not deal with this here. Let's deal with, this is nothing to do with the class right now. This is nothing to do with the lesson we're teaching. Let's talk about it after class, okay, in our own time, okay, not the other people's time. I think that we need to be able to do that, to step back, to not get angry. Also, yeah, don't assume that you will have discipline problems. Prejudice is a little spelled wrong there, sorry about that. Especially for new teachers who are maybe going from primary school into high school, or middle school into high school. Don't assume that, oh, I've got a group of teenagers, I'm going to have problems, because that can put you on your guard too much, in a way that you're ready. Okay, I'm ready to fight you. Okay, just don't assume that you're going to have problems, because you probably won't. actually. Okay, so those are my be careful things here. I've got an activity at the end here, but I don't think we probably have time to do that. I just want to walk you through an activity that I do with my teachers at university, my pre-service teachers at university. I like to give this song activity because the idea of this activity is to help my student teachers think about what teenagers are, what their life is like, that kind of thing. So it's making a connection here. And I've got a song activity. Back to Ms. Varma. Ferhat Hocam.
We have time, yes, hocam.
Okay, so we might as well do it then. Yes, why not?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I won't do it as an activity. I'll walk you through it. Okay, so this is the question. You remember, if we ever, you know, songs are something that we definitely do with young learners, but they're very sort of language chunk based, aren't they? Songs that we do with teenagers obviously are going to be different. There's a lot of songs we can use. We've got to be careful because a lot of the songs that teenagers like these days are not always suitable for language teaching. Okay, so I think we've got to be very careful with that. You know, have to check it first. But this is okay. This is a song from 40 years ago when I was a teenager. Okay, gosh, is it that long? And this is the question I start off with. How different is life for teenagers today when compared with 40 years ago? Okay, think about internal and external factors. Okay, and before we listen to the song, we look at these, the generation names. Okay, I remember these names came about recently. Okay, when people were baby boomers, they didn't call themselves baby boomers. Okay, so we've got these generations, isn't it? This is the generation we're teaching, Gen Z. We've got millennials, some of us maybe Gen X, some of you maybe millennials, okay, baby boomers as well. So what are the characteristics of each generation? Okay, how different is life? Okay, is it, what I try to get from here is that internally, okay, sorry, externally, things are very, very different. Okay, in terms of technology and the way the living standards and the way we live our lives, but internally, actually, things are pretty much the same. Okay, that's what the thing I want to go to. Then, before we listen to the song, I've made this word cloud out of the adjectives or some extra words that I've sneaked in here, but never mind, but mostly adjectives or adverbs. And I want them to look at the word cloud and I want them to divide these words into two parts. Words related to childhood, words related to adolescence. Okay, so for example, you would have things like playfully, happily, singing, young, joyfully, miracle. All these would be related to childhood. Things like acceptable, intellectual, responsible, cynical, all those things are related to adolescence and growing up, for example. And this is the song. Let's listen to the song, okay? Maybe some of you know this. Do you know this song at all? Nope. Gosh, okay, you're all too young. Okay then. No, it's a really useful song. I think you can use it for language teaching as well. You can use it for adjectives and adverbs, definitely. But I use this for teacher education, as we'll see for the reason. So let's just play it for you. Okay, so I love that video. I mean, the song anyway was it's an old song, but the words are meaningful as well. It's a typical teenage problem there, but I love the video as well because teenage girls made it. It was very, very creative, I think, and this is an example of what teenagers can do, their creativity. They thought of what does this song mean? How can I present it? And they've gone through all those stages there as well. I think that's really I think that gives an extra nice dimension to that. And at the end, okay, they throw paper around, but what do? They're socially responsible. They go and pick them all back up again. Okay, so they're a good, how can I say, there was a good role model there. So they listen, we can listen to those and then we see if we get our words right in the right place, related to childhood and what have you. My task 2 then would this time to be follow the lyrics and find examples of cognitive, affective, social and behavioural factors as well, because in the lyrics there are examples of all the things that we've been talking about from the beginning of the lesson. So let me see if I'll show you the lyrics. Okay, I can't find those at the moment, so if we got time, I know I could go and look for them immediately on my computer if that's okay, but never mind. What we do there, we listen, when we look at the lyrics, we can see the general idea that this teenager in 1979 was saying how wonderful it was when he was a child. Okay, he could play freely, everything was so wonderful, magical, and then somebody sent him to school. They sent him to school. And at school, it was expected from him to be responsible, logical, cynical, and everything. And then life sort of went downhill after there. Okay, and I think teenagers, I think that's a very universal thought, isn't it, from teenagers? Okay, this was 1979 UK, but a lot of teenagers in Turkey today think the same things. So this song also is quite useful for teenagers. It's like what you're going through. People have been going through this for years, for generations. What you're experiencing now is it's not new. It's new for you, but it's not new for the human race in general. Okay, you'll get over this. We'll go through this together. Okay, and it's also quite useful for teacher candidates to find the examples of those cognitive, affective, and social characteristics as well. Okay, so there we go. Those are my references, and that's my contact details. Okay, from Uludağ. Here we go. So thank you for listening. I hope that was informative.
Thank you, Amanda Hocam. It was very informative and we enjoyed learning about teenagers. And I remember the time I was teaching to teenagers when I first came to Kuştepe, and I remembered all those scenes and make connections in my mind. In the chat box, we have a question. İpek Demirci is asking, can we use karaoke in teenagers' classes?
Yes, of course. I mean, the one thing about songs is that they present actually chunks of language with a kind of a natural, the way we say them naturally. Okay, so that with all those phonological features, aren't they? So karaoke is a really good idea, of course, because it helps the students develop their speaking fluency in a way. Okay, I think definitely karaoke would be a good idea. As always, it's we've got to be careful what the song is and make sure there aren't any parts of the song that are non-education, not suitable for educational environments. I think we have to do a little bit of screening there, definitely. But yes, I think karaoke is an excellent idea, and they love it. Teenagers, I think, really, I've seen them when I go to teaching practice. They really enjoy singing songs. Yeah.
Yeah. Buse Yaşar is asking, how can we improve the writing and speaking skills of our students, the productive skills that is most difficult to develop, maybe?
Right. I mean, that's a very general, there's a very general question. I think what we need to do, first of all, before we think about the actual language we're going to practice there, I think we need to remember that whatever speaking or writing task we give, it should have some kind of realistic aim, an aim that's a relatable aim. So the aim should be relatable to the students' lives in terms of topic, and also in terms of the skills that they're going to be able to use. I think, for example, with writing now, more than ever before, we're writing more because of social media. Aren't we? I mean, 10, 15 years ago, we didn't read or write that much. Okay, it's arguable the quality of reading and writing is certainly arguable. However, in English classrooms, I think we can encourage students to write, to create posts of good quality in English to publish on social media. I think that's, again, one of our jobs, rather than complaining about the quality, is helping our students to produce good quality material to share. So I think that might be really useful there. So writing, these collaborative writing, using, for example, Google Drive. Through Google Drive, students can collaborate together in real time, synchronously, on documents there. Okay, so that's one way of doing. So I think we've got to relate it to the student's life, rather than say, for example, write a paragraph. Okay, writing a paragraph is boring. We never write paragraphs in our real lives, do we? I think I'll just sit down and write a paragraph of something. We don't do that. We might write paragraphs as part of something. Okay, so for example, an Instagram caption may be in the form of a paragraph. And what we're doing there, we're describing the picture, or we're saying what happened. Here's a picture of what we did today, and this is what's happened. So I think we've got to make very clearly what our aim is. We've got to a very clear, relatable aim. Students should realise, be aware of who they're writing for. Okay, we should have an audience, and also a relevant genre as well. Okay, so I think that's important there, and also to make it collaborative as well. Writing can be a collaborative process. Regarding speaking, obviously speaking is actually we're a huge advantage than we used to have before, because of technology, because of the things that we have available. I would say with speaking, we've got to remember that speaking, again, like anything, is it develops over time. What students will want at the beginning is a lot of maybe safe practice, where they can practice with chunks of language, which is where karaoke comes in really well. So for maybe choosing a song that has a particular chunk of language that they can use would be a good way to introduce it, to practice it. Give them an opportunity to make short videos of them speaking. They can prepare to speak, or videos of a dialogue, maybe that a kind of, how can I say, yeah, a kind of a dialogue or a short sketch or something like that, that they can practice and video. So the act of practicing that dialogue will help them to automatize that language. It will help them to work with that accuracy. And then once they've had that safe practice, then they're more able to very slowly take a step further and speak more spontaneously. I mean, I think what we've got to remember with speaking and writing, as with anything, what is our goal? We want students who can speak spontaneously. That just doesn't happen. Okay, if we ask a student a question and come on, speak, then it doesn't happen. We have to scaffold our lesson plans very, very well for that to happen. And for speaking and writing, maybe we have to, just like piano practice in a way, give them opportunities to practice with small chunks of language and then build up on there. Okay, and I think these days with video logs and YouTube and all these sorts of different things where students can record videos, I think that's going to be really helpful for language practice, for speaking practice. And there are also programs that may be matching people up from different, sometimes you hear about these, somebody in, I don't know, Mexico, an English language teacher in Mexico wants to have speaking partners. Okay, so you can pair students up with other students from different countries, but they have to speak English. I mean, that's possible now these days. Okay,
Yeah.
that's
I think students nowadays are doing lots of Erasmus projects and e-tutoring projects where they have chance to speak with the students from other countries.
right.
Thank you, Hocam. These are all great ideas. Thank you for enlightening us and sharing your valuable time with us. And for those who doesn't follow our Instagram account, as Amanda Hoca indicated, somehow our main aim is to make the students speak, and we have lots of state school students speaking very fluently in English in this project because they are trained so. So please follow our Instagram account and the project Believe in Yourself, Just Speak. Thank you, Hocam, again. And thank you everyone for watching and joining the event. And goodbye.
Okay.
Maybe I should open the chat box, not be a very strict teacher, and everyone can write what they think. And there are lots of thank yous for you from various people. Okay.
Oh, thank you. I can see Zehra Yakan with me privately though. Oh, that's nice.
Okay. Thank you, Hocam. Have a good night. Goodbye.
Thank you.